Greetings and welcome, everybody.
Yeah. So this is creative collaboration.
Collaboration.
Why don't you take the title?
Oh,
so this is
creative collaboration.
Yeah. See, there we go. We just did it.
Amazing. So this panel came about because we kind of wanted to talk about this. That the four of us are two groups of two people each, to make math seemingly difficult. That like making games together. Adam and I. My name is Christopher, and this is Adam. And
Ben Pinchback.
Matt Riddle.
And the two of us make games together, and the two of them make games together. And we were getting ready for Gen Con this year, many months ago, and we're like, man, we have this thing that we do, and it's actually kind of similar, but also very different from the thing they do. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about that thing and why this is the way it works well for us. And also, obviously, this is day 4 of Gen Con, so my voice is very bad. It's not the first day. Oh no.
Well, you do Gen Con backwards.
Right.
You move backwards in time. Like you have a Benjamin Button thing going on.
For Gen Con only. Yeah, every year.
His voice is going to be awesome in 4 days.
Yeah, on Sunday I'm going to be like, oh man, first day guys, you excited?
Yeah.
But right, so the two of us make, to give a little bit of context for what we do, the two of us make a game called Sentinels: The Multiverse, and we've also made other games since then, but that's like the most notable one. Right now we're working on RPG.
Yeah, and that came about collaboratively. We worked on this game together, and then I drew all the things, and he went and tweaked all the rules and stuff.
And wrote all the stories, and yeah, it's great. And so the point of our friendship is, because our friendship is very, very old.
Yes.
We've been friends for 25
older
years.
Older than we are.
Yes, much older. But the point of our friendship is that we like making stuff together, and that's why we made a game together. And it just turned out that we are actually good at making things together, which is irrelevant to the friendship. We could make things.
It would happen if we were good at it or not.
Right. And I assume you two fell into a similar pattern of you were doing this because you wanted to, not because you're like, man, you know what is the big bucks?
Yeah.
Making board games together.
Matt and I have also known each other a long time, since we were 12 and 14, respectively. So
6 years ago.
I was going to say,
right.
What is that? Is that about 25
years ago, maybe? No, yeah, it is
about 25 years.
25 years.
Yeah, 25 years.
Right on the clock. So, you've probably heard of Sentinels. Matt and I, we made a couple games. You might have heard of Fleet with Eagle Griffin a bunch of years ago, Wasteland Express Delivery Service. We have Pete Motts at the Asmodee Lookout booth today. But more importantly, we did Legends of Sleepy Hollow.
I don't know if more importantly is true.
I think most importantly.
I mean, maybe.
If you go by hours spent on the game,
okay,
that's definitely the most important thing we've ever worked
Wasteland
on.
Express, you guys put a bunch of hours into that as well.
We have put a lot of hours into Wasteland Express and easily eclipsed it.
Legend of Sleepy Hollow is a game that is coming out sometime in the next year. I don't want to give it let's not get into that right now.
Right on.
Cool. You can see the pieces of the booth. Right?
That's right.
Yeah, you can play it. You can play it at the booth.
Oh,
yeah. We're running demos. So come by and actually, sorry, you can see the pieces of the booth. You can play it in the room.
Yeah.
The demo room 140 in the convention hall. The Legend of Sleepy Hollow is playable, and it's a super cool game that is very fun.
I'm very excited.
And there is one character that is objectively the best one. He carries a shovel. I'm not biased. I get to be biased in other people's games.
The funny part was when you gave legitimate advice on hitting people with the shovel,
yeah.
And I'm like, I'm not sure who we got involved with here.
Right. No, I have a lot of direct shovel fighting experience, and I want to give that to you.
He's telling us the right way to hit someone with a shovel.
It's not what you think, and it's probably worse.
Yeah.
So Adam and I are going to jam for a few minutes about our creative process, and then I want to hear you guys talk about shit.
Sure.
Cool. So when Adam and I have an idea, it is born because we're both sleeping at the same time, and we both have the same dream, and they're talking about it. That's not true. Adam and I, that was an example of what we do. Mostly what Adam and I do is make up bullshit stories and lies and tell each other these stories. And then they turn into things. And this is the basis of most everything we do. I don't think...
I would say 99 times out of 100, we're sitting at our desks, and I'm drawing stuff, and you're writing stuff, and one of us gets up and goes to the other desk and says, dude, I have this story. What if this happened and this happened, this happened, and then the other person said,
but wouldn't it be cool if, right.
Yeah.
And it's, and even before that, even before we had a game company, before we did any of this, we would be working whatever jobs, and we would, one of us would text the other and be like, what if there was a story in which a person like this did a thing like that, and oh, that'd be cool, but what if they were also a minotaur? What? Okay.
Yeah.
And
that changes everything.
Right. And that sort of collaborative storytelling done for no real reason, done for with no end goal, was just our friendship. And then we started realizing, we want to play a game about superheroes, and one doesn't exist that does what we want it to. So let's do this thing we do where we make up a bunch of stories and then turn it into a game that the game performs those stories for us. Yeah. And this entire process, like every so often somebody says, which of the characters did Christopher create and which characters did Adam create? And we're like, ugh.
Yeah, and there's not a clear delineation between those.
Right.
But like, one of us always came up with like the initial thing. But by the time that they're actually a character, it's such a completely different thing. It's completely interwoven.
The one that I remember the most, which is the worst example of our process, is the one where you're like, oh my gosh, it'd be super cool to have a character who was like multiple different robot parts working together in synchronized. And I'm like, oh, that'd be cool. We could name that character Unity. And then we made the character Unity, and she's nothing like that. Like the word robot stayed. Everything else about it changed. Yeah. But most commonly, it's like just like figuring things out. And then, and so that's the easy part and the fun part of like telling stories and coming up with that stuff. Mm-hmm. Then we get down to the actual game design parts, and that's way more grueling. But it's the advantage of working together is that we do design and development kind of at the same time. Because as like I'm writing nitty-gritty rules out and doing design stuff, then I'm throwing it against the wall and being like, Adam, so this is how this works. And he's like, yeah, but I don't like that part. Or, ooh, I super like that part. Can we lean on that?
Yeah. The best example of how that's worked lately is there's a deck for a character called Akashatria that is an earth spirit and has like all of these seeds and stuff and these plants and all these different things that she's doing. And I see this deck and I'm like, this is really cool. What if there was a giant tree in it? And he said,
there's no space in this deck for a giant tree.
There's no space at all. And I said, well, I really want to draw a giant tree in the middle of a city. I really want to just do that.
I'm going to interrupt you and correct you where you're wrong here, because you forced my hand. It was great. He was like, I really want to do this giant tree. I'm like, there's not really space. The deck doesn't need it. The deck works really well. Doesn't need a giant tree. He's like, okay, cool. And then he goes back to his desk and he spends several hours drawing this gorgeous art of a giant tree in the middle of the city. And he's like, look at this art. I'm like, all right, if it has a giant tree,
it has to go in there now because I did it.
Right. And so there's this like creative collaborative part where we're like inserting into each other's stories, but then the game design stuff works the same way, where normally, like if I'm designing a game in a vacuum by myself and I'm just like making this game, and then I show it to playtesters or I show it to like developers and things like that, and we work on it, great, that works really well. Whereas in the moment when we're doing this like line by line live, interrupting each other's stories and art and game design, it means that we get work done like incredibly fast.
Yeah.
We do
and I want to say that there's probably like an element of antagonism to it that I don't say that jokingly. That it is any idea that you put forth, like any idea that either of us puts forth, needs to be able to withstand the rigors of the other's criticism.
Yeah, it would be like, I have this idea for that. I'm like, well, that's a dumb idea. And if I can't support it, if I can't back it up, if I can't convince you, then you're not. I've been convinced. Yeah.
We were just talking about that this morning. Yeah. Like we don't know what Adam and Christopher's process is going to be, but we're going to come in saying that one person says something, the other one tells them it's dumb, and if you're willing to, in our experience, brave the onslaught and defend it enough that the other person's willing to try it, then it gets to the table to try.
Right. And that way you essentially go through so much playtesting. Because instead of, I have this idea, I made the thing, now let me show you the thing, okay, now we get to feedback. I'm like, I'm in the process of making the thing. No, don't.
Right.
Either okay or no, I must.
Yes. No, I think so too. I think a lot of times, we've done a panel similar to this years ago, but even when you kind of read tweets and listen to podcasts, there's sort of this idea like, each person has ideas and you try them out. I'm like, you're wasting a lot of time trying some bad ideas out there. Yeah. Like, I got lots of bad ideas. He's got lots of bad ideas. And our jobs, I think, as partners, is to help sort of filter out those bad ideas, frankly. Because if you just try everything, you're never going to get anything actually good done. Yeah, so it's super important to have that ability to be honest and frank and like.
But you should have all those ideas.
Yeah,
present them all, and be willing to talk to each other honestly.
Because that's absolutely like the stuff that comes out of the mill is the 2% good stuff. You're like, wow, you guys make so much cool stuff. It's like, no, we make so much garbage stuff, and then we agree on so much good stuff. So. All right, so that was me lathering on. You guys start.
Yeah.
Oh, we interrupted.
You guys play.
Yeah.
No, you.
Oh, so I think I'll let Ben tell the origin story, I guess. But our process is similar but different. I mean, I think we approach it, and we happen both be engineers. We've known each other since we were 12, like Ben said.
And we start with story 2. Matt will come by and say, Ben, I got this story about a guy that's holding 5 cards.
Right.
5 cards on the table.
Right.
And what column he plays to will determine which card,
Yes, that's probably the key difference, I think, in our process on this half the table, is that we do tend to be, mechanic-y guys. That's kind of our thought process is. And I think the most important part, though, again, is wherever the idea starts from. And sometimes, Ben's the notebook guy, right? If you ever see him tweet about it, or he'll make fun of, some of our buddies that do it. He'll have all these ideas, and he'll just jot them down. I've never wrote a notebook idea down in my life. It's just not how I work. I'm not interested. I'll remember it. My process, if it's good enough, I'll remember it. If I forget it, we got plenty of other ideas to deal with later. So, and I think there is a yin and a yang, too.
Yeah.
I think with, Ben and I are both sort of mechanic design first guys, but we're better at different things. I'm not an idea guy. I would not be sitting here if it wasn't for Ben. I wouldn't be designing games. I'd be at Gen Con playing games and having a great time, but I wouldn't be a game designer because I'm never going to have a seed idea that goes anywhere. I'm going to occasionally...
That's not true.
It's not totally true, but it's a smaller percentage. I'm a much smaller percentage of that seed idea. I'm a little bit better when we get to the next step and it's sort of, fleshing out that idea. So it would be difficult for me to imagine ever having done this because I would have just disregarded the ideas that I had. So it's important, I think, to be with somebody that you think has a bit of an opposing viewpoint and a bit of a different opposing skill set as well, if possible.
So it's really easy to find someone to design games with. You just find someone you've known 25 years, and that fills in the exact gaps that you're bad at.
So, just do that.
Can I level start real quick? Who's here for game design type stuff?
Cool.
Okay, who's here to see Christopher's hair? Okay, and then so if you haven't raised your hand yet, just if you guys don't mind, what's your goal as either one of you? Somebody.
It just looked interesting.
Okay.
Cool.
And then,
we'll disappoint you.
Yeah.
My fiance listens to a podcast, and he has recently gotten me into it, and he is one of the citizens. So
awesome. Okay. Cool. I just, in case I don't want to overly focus on game design. If anybody else, had anything else they want to hear, let us know. But certainly it'll be a game design focus. That's what we do. But just curious, I wanted to get an idea of what you guys were here for. And cool.
Mostly hair, I guess.
Mostly hair.
Yeah. So our origin story is pretty similar. I mean, we've been friends for 20 years at that point. We played a lot of games. Matt was my arch nemesis at game night. He's really good. It's tough to beat him. Like, I'd rather lose to all these people and beat Matt. Losing to Matt is the worst possible outcome of any game because he's really good and it's frustrating. So then when I thought I wanted to make a game, I'm like, the person I want to make a game with is the person I can't beat because he's really good at games. So, and we've had this friendship for so long. So long story short, we work at the same job, so it works pretty nice. We take lunch together every day, and over lunch we work on games. And I came in one day and just told him, hey, we're making a game. And he goes, cool, what do you got? So then that day at lunch, laid out what we had, and then kind of away we go.
And that was Fleet, for what it's worth. We played Fleet. That was, he had, I think, from that day in the car, or a couple days before that, he had the idea of licenses. The way the Fleet. If you haven't played Fleet, don't worry about it, but you have a license, and that kind of drives your powers. That's your tableau. And then as you play cards out of your hand, it adds points, and then you can get more of the same licenses. That's really, I think, the core idea that drove Fleet was that the idea that you have, like Puerto Rico buildings or whatever, pick a game that's got powers and tableau powers. But with Fleet, if you have the same one twice, the power increases. So that was like the core idea that he had right from day one. Oh, and my favorite part of the story really is that he's like, dude, check this out. The cards, they do different things. So we had no idea that multi-use cards were already in existence for 20 years. Because we hadn't played a game that had multi-use cards before. He's like, this is the best idea I've ever had.
Yeah.
And it was.
Oh, I've definitely done that.
Yeah, it already existed.
Check out this revolutionary mechanic that I've come up with. And to throw you under the bus, Adam is way unlikely to know that I'm wrong.
Yeah.
Adam knows much less about the game industry than I do.
Yeah, I just don't play as many games.
Right. And so I'm like, check out the sweet idea. And Adam's like, that is a sweet idea. And we do it. And then we're like, and then we show it to people and they're like, oh, yeah, so that's like X game? I'm like, no. I've never heard of that game, shut up.
Early. Can't use it?
Right, yeah.
Early on, I think even after Fleet, I was like, Matt, I got the next best idea ever. It's worker placement, but you can buy the spots. And you own the spot. And someone would have to give you stuff to use the spot. No one's ever done this.
So this is not what this panel is about, but this is the thing that
I'm glad you know it's been done 100 times.
This is the thing that I wanted to talk about for a long time, so I'm hijacking this panel to also talk about this thing.
Yeah.
I think that one of the great things you should do as a game designer, I know a lot of game designers that do this thing where they're like, okay, if I want to be a game designer, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to play every game ever, and I'm going to absorb every game ever, and I'm going to read every gaming blog, and I'm going to learn about all the game mechanics, and therefore I'll know all the things, and I'll have the biggest toolbox, and because I have the biggest toolbox, I'll be able to make all the games. And I think that's wrong. I think the thing you should do is try to make up new mechanics, and you're going to make up a mechanic that somebody else already thought of. You're going to do that. And that's fine because you will be so attached to the thing. Like, you guys are making up mechanics that you later learn, other people. And we do the same thing. And I know a lot of game designers that do that because rather than saying, oh, I need to own all the tools and then I'll use them, it's like, I'm going to invent some tools. I'm going to invent this thing that's like a wooden stick with a metal piece at the top and I can hit stuff with it. Oh, I'm really psyched about this thing. Like, that's just a hammer.
If you know every tool in this instance, I think it actually kind of hurts you.
You're like, well, I don't want to use it.
Right. I've limited myself from all of these things. I can't make any of these games.
Right, because you're using words like deck building and to blow and stuff like that. Like, just make stuff happen, move things around on a table, do things like that.
And I think if you try to rotely script out the process, you're not going to be passionate and follow these, these threads. Because from listening to your story in the past about the meeting at the diner and the all-night meeting, and we have to make this thing. That's generally when your best designs come out. It's not, okay, I've played the 30 hot games and I'm ready to make the new game. Yeah. It's usually like maybe I play one game and there's a really cool thing that inspires me to do a spin-off or some other thing. And you get really excited about that one thing and follow that thread. Yeah. And if some people have already done a few of the things you did, then you just do it a little different in the end.
And I mean, there's tons of space for games that do similar things in lots of different ways. Like, I want that.
And that's shortage of deck building games.
Right. No. So this is the thing. Also, I want to also retract a thing that we have all said and agree with, and is definitely true about the antagonism. Because of the thing that you just said about being passionate about the stuff, we're extremely antagonistic about each other's ideas and designs. Towards the end goal of we're extremely passionate about the things we're making. Right. We're so hyped about it. And as much as it sounds like, oh yeah, we fight all the time about this, actually we're fighting on the same side. Yeah. Just the thing, the enemy that we're fighting against is bad ideas. And those bad ideas flow freely from both of us.
Well, and as a result, it sort of becomes like a no one picks on my brother but me thing. That we'll get very defensive of each other to criticism.
No, it's great. It's like we're
really mean.
We're super mean against each other, and then somebody will post a review of one of our games and be like, well, I didn't really like the art on this card. And I was like, no, that's too bad they don't like the art. And we're like, I kind of agree with them. I'm not thrilled about it. I'm like, I would kill that person. They don't like that art. That art's my favorite art. Yeah. I have it tattooed on my flesh.
Let me explain to you why that mechanic actually works.
Right. I'm like, no, they're right. I should have done a better job.
No, you shouldn't have. No, you're perfect.
To talk about the antagonistic thing, and a friend of ours that's co-designing a game with a buddy, he asked us recently, he's like, who on each project do you pick someone to be in charge, to be the final voice on the project? The buck stops with them if you can't agree. And I said, we've luckily in 6 years, we've never actually had that situation where someone has to pull rank. Mm-hmm. Our process is, after we're done shouting at each other, if both positions are believe they're right enough, every time we'll just try it both ways.
No, sure.
Yep. And that, luckily enough, at this point, we try it both ways, and it always shows itself true which way is the better way.
Yeah. And the thing for us that happens, we occasionally get to the try both ways thing. We way more frequently, I have this idea, and I am 100% certain it's correct. And before I even talk to Adam about it, I have gone through the process and I've mapped it out and I know it's definitely correct. And I talked to Adam about it, and Adam was like, no, I don't like it. I'm like, I knew you wouldn't like it. And I knew what your arguments are going to be. So I'm ready for it. And we fight back and forth. But what comes out, no matter how certain I was that I was right and the thing that I liked was good, no matter what comes out of it is different from that. And it's way better. Yeah, it's definitely better. Neither one of us in a vacuum are half as good as we are together.
We feel the same way.
Yeah.
I think that's important too. I guess a few things, maybe more specific, like say tips in the sense of actionable items. Is, in my opinion, what all that really means is that the reason it's a positive experience to design with a partner, not any specific way, but is that by default you've got playtesting. And we've got lots of friends who are designing games and they're guys and girls who are doing it by themselves. And I don't know how they get anything done because it's hard to play a game by yourself. It just is. Because you're going to get a sense of what's happening. Yeah, you can fix things and you can work on a mechanic maybe and kind of think through an idea. But until you've actually put it down and you've sat across the table from someone and actually tried it, that's when you actually begin to see what's truly working, what's driving decision space, and what's interesting. So if anything else that if you can get out of having a design partner, it's that. It's the ability to just play your own stuff as quickly and as often as possible. Like we joke around all the time, and not jokingly, but we've played our own games thousands of times before anyone else plays it. Yep. Even at situations like all I like to do, if you are game designers in this room, go to Unpub and go to those cons and take advantage of those resources. They're amazing. But that said, before we've ever showed it to a stranger, or even somebody in our game group, we've already played the Jesus out of it, and it's going to work. It may not be fun, it may not be great yet, but it's going to work before we show it to anybody else because we've kind of honed it ourselves by having the ability to play it. So that, to me, and frankly, I guess there's two things: that and the ability to have a commitment to someone else. I mean, Ben and I can text anytime to do that. I'm tired. We're not doing it tonight. Whatever. But we generally, we take some time off here and there for because of life. And he's got a pile of kids, and I got teenagers, and a big pile of kids. And so life gets in the way, of course. But we set a commitment, and we meet. We get to meet at work, which is helpful. But we get designing, almost every week once we're getting in the roll of it again. And okay, on Tuesday night we're going to go. I'm going to go to his house. He's going to come to my house, and we're going to design for 3 hours. So if I need to have something done or he needs to have something done, we got to have something to work on. And that commitment keeps you thinking and keeps you working.
There's a lot of accountability.
Accountability, exactly. Because it's not always fun. It's fun most of the time or we wouldn't do it. We don't make enough money to do this not for fun. Because it is a fun, awesome process. But it's also work 35% of the time. Mm-hmm. It's just work. And you do it because you think you've got something worth working on. So you have to be able to power through the part that is just work, and having someone else to be accountable to helps you make those steps. Again, if it was just me, I'd have shelved it and played a video game instead. So having the accountability helps you drive forward when things get a little bogged down.
And if you get lucky, like we were saying earlier, the partner enjoys a lot of the things that you don't enjoy,
yep.
Right. Or is at least willing to do them at a higher level that you're willing to do them. So that we've got a lot of mileage out of that part of the relationship too.
I think the other incredibly important aspect is trust. And that is like when we're in our office, there's the freedom to say whatever we need to.
Yep.
And
be very honest with each other.
To make as many mistakes and say whatever nonsense or horrible things come to mind, and knowing that I'm saying that in a safe place, basically.
Right. That when we're working together, the stuff that we're doing, this happens a ton. When we're working up the tree to get to the final point, that it's going to end up in, there are things that are like, oh, what if we go down this road? What if we go down this road? And when we finally get to this tree, all that stuff disappears. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what we talked about. It doesn't matter. We're not going to be like, oh, well, you said this one thing, and as a result, I'm going to hold it. Nope.
So I don't feel like the motive behind this is right.
Right. No, we got to that end point together, and when we get to that end point, it's not like, yes, either one of us got our way. No, we made it work, right?
So let me ask you guys a question that people ask us sometimes, and I want to see how you answer it. Is how do y'all prioritize the projects you work on, and what's getting what attention?
Which is the biggest fire?
But even say, Adam has, Christopher, I got this amazing idea for a new game tomorrow, and someone has to say, okay, put that aside for 3 weeks, or So tell me about that relationship.
I can tell you exactly how that works. So to back up a little bit, the rather than what is the biggest fire, my answer to the knee-jerk response to that would be that we have some things that we are working on that have deadlines, and then there's some things we're working on that we definitely do every week no matter what. When it comes to Friday, on Friday, it doesn't matter what deadlines are coming up. It doesn't matter if there's something that's super important that's due on Monday. On Friday, we do this one thing, and we do it every Friday, and that's what Friday is. That's what happens. That's that day. And it does not matter what's on fire.
And we do get sidetracked during that, certainly.
All the time.
I just had this idea for this thing. Okay, and what we'll do then is write it on the board and talk about it on Monday.
So we have 1, 2, 3, 4 giant whiteboards and a smaller whiteboard. No, 5 giant whiteboards and a smaller whiteboard, and then Adam's corkboard. That is our external hard drives. We put a bunch of things into computers and stuff, pretty sure, fine. But those whiteboards, that is where the stuff that we're actively thinking about but need to be able to put aside, because when Adam's got this great idea for a super killer thing that we're definitely going to do, and I'm really excited about that, but we cannot think about it, we cannot talk about it for at least 3 weeks. Great, we write it on the whiteboard, and that way we can just like see it in passing all the time. Because in our office, we share one office. You two work at the same place. We also work at the same place.
Yeah. We don't own our place.
Yeah. Yet. But we share an office that's about the size, like from that wall to this wall.
Yeah.
And then about
Probably
the depth from here to the front chairs.
Yeah.
Like that's the
From the
space
back
we
of
have.
the front
And it's just all coded in whiteboards. And like this whiteboard is a book that we're currently working on. And then this whiteboard is the expansions for this thing. But then this whiteboard is, it gets erased all the time. That whiteboard gets, I know you're in the same place in the room that I am. I love it. This whiteboard, we erase every other week and then refresh it. But then this whiteboard here is the like active hard drive space where it's like, okay, I want to work on this soon. I want to work on this later. I want to work on this in 2 years. Goes on the whiteboard. So that we're still seeing it. We didn't put it in a file and forget about it. We're still looking at it all the time, and we know, okay, this is coming up. We can do this thing. But then we are also like focused on the present matters, and that sort of like living in a space where we're looking at the things we're thinking about all the time. It keeps us on track because we started doing this because we had the system that you mentioned earlier about like sometimes I have an idea and if I forget it and it doesn't come back to me, it wasn't that good of an idea. That doesn't work for us.
A lot of really good ideas.
You gonna tell the story?
Yes. Yeah. So we were transitioning from Baron Blade being a villain to being a playable hero in the final expansion, and we were like, okay, we need to come up with a hero name for him. And we thought about it for a whole day. We came with a perfect
name.
Yeah.
We knew what the exactly perfect name is. Like, oh, this name is so perfect. We will never forget it.
Yeah, never forget
How
it.
could we forget it? It's a perfect name for this character.
Fast forward.
Let's go on and work on other things. And when it comes time to name that, to put the name on the character, we know it.
Fast forward 3 months later, we have no idea what we thought of. So we spent then another week or so.
It took us way longer.
Yeah, it took about a week trying to name this character, and ended up with the same name, Luminary, that we had thought of before.
And we got to it and we're like,
get there.
That was it!
That was it!
So that's one of the reasons that we now have whiteboards.
We just write it down.
I have this with me at all times. I am always writing things down because I don't trust us to remember. Because like we talked about, we're all coming up with 1,000 good ideas and we're keeping 2% of them.
Yeah.
And I don't remember which ones are good or not.
Now you mentioned a cork board.
Yes.
Do you have like things connected with yarn like the detectives in The Wire?
No, that's our whiteboard.
Not anymore.
So the way that we did our conspiracy theory style whiteboard stuff, it makes us not look like crazy people because we don't have yarn. But what we do is we'll be like writing this thing over here, and then we'll write a thing over here, and then we're like, oh, I'm gonna write one and circle it, and one and circle it.
Oh, that's the wormhole.
And that's like
So it's like a different color post-it note that corresponds to this one up here, so we don't have to put a string
without looking crazy.
Right. So we don't look like we're crazy people.
Yes.
But we definitely are. No, the corkboard is Adam's workflow. We're like, this is stuff that I'm doing right now. Yeah. This is stuff that's coming up. This is stuff that's in process. This is the stuff that's done.
Yeah. It's like a Scrum or an Agile board or
Yeah.
So they own the company, Matt. How would you say our two schlubs that work day jobs prioritize?
I would say that while both of us are very busy supporting our country via the large military vehicles we make, we have a little messenger app, and it's this really ancient freeware called Pigeon. That doesn't matter, it's not part of the story, but it sucks. But I'm in IT, so I can say that. And what I'll do is, because it looks like work, right, if anyone's walking by, because it's like the work-approved messenger app. And then you can save those message chats to a Word document later. So it's same thing at home, right? Like you can. I'm not a writer. I'm not a journaler. I'm not that kind of person. But we all have ideas, and I don't want to forget things either. I turned 40 this year. Stuff's starting to go, and it is what it is. So it's a text or like, hey, I have this thing, or I sent a little email. One was called Village of Bora Bora, which was some conglomeration of Village and Bora Bora in my head. And we never did anything with it, but I captured the idea of Village of Bora Bora with like 2 sentences of what that meant in my head. Just in case, later on when we came back to it, we'd have that idea still to the exact point, right? We don't have the advantage of the whiteboard, but it's there digitally, or again, Ben's a notebooker. I would say too, what's interesting is when I hear you guys talk about your whiteboards and you've got your corkboard, I think what that highlights to me is, and Ben kind of alluded to it earlier, is part of the cool thing too, and again, we're talking about all the positives of the negative. I think is you have to split the money. It's probably the biggest negative, right? You got to share the small amount of money you're getting anyway.
Yeah.
But the other positive really is that as you go through this process, again, what percentage is fun, what percentage of work can vary depending on the day. But at some point, when Ben's finishing up the files for Sleepy Hollow Chapter 6, I'm emailing Rio Grande artist because he screwed something up. And there's, that's like, we can be doing different things that's accomplishing the same task. Because at some point, even if you're selling a game to a publisher, there's still work to be done after that. And that's not fun. You're not designing a game right now. You're really working on your product. And it's interesting because you're working towards a goal and you're excited to see where it comes out of that. But it's program management at that point, right? And I get paid to do that during the day. I don't want to do that when I get home necessarily. But you have to. So I know that if Ben's accomplishing one thing, I can be accomplishing another thing. And if it was all left on one person, then it's easy to sort of, the first thing you're going to push aside, frankly, is the game design. Because you need to do these other things have to be done to get your product to where it needs to go. So those are your requirements and your commitments. And unfortunately, those are going to come ahead of the part that's fun and the part that you're here to do, which is design the game. So allowing to kind of sharing that workload and focusing on two different projects from a post-development process or a post-design process allows us to spend that time on design that we need to keep our stuff moving.
Yeah, and I think as far as like design priority, what's worked for us is, we don't have the same level of obligations, as the gentleman that owned the company, but we do have obligations, Sleepy Hollow files, done by this time, Wasteland Express expansion, files done by this time. So there is certain obligations we are meeting, but as far as like design things that we're prioritizing, it's kind of just organic with us. It's what one of us is most excited about to carry the water for.
Yeah.
And if the excitement isn't there, even if it seems like a fine project, if somebody's not super pushing it and pushing it and pushing it and really excited about it, then it falls off and it's one of the 98, you mentioned the 2% good ideas and the 98% that fall away. Then it might be a fine game that falls away because neither of us are super championing it. But if one of us really gets a bug about an idea and is just showing up to design night with that proto and at lunch at work, like that's the one that's getting brought out, then those are the games that make it to the finish line.
And I think too, even just, again, I'm sorry, who designs games? Cool. So here's something that's super hard that we've gotten better at as a team is moving on. And what I mean by that is sometimes you have a game and it's your baby and you love it. And you showed it to a publisher, you showed it to some friends, and it's, oh, that's pretty good, or that's really good, or that's okay. And you don't want to give it up for whatever reason, because there's something that you just love. And unfortunately, it never turned into, at some point, every game's a product. Whether, that's going to include all the awesome art and all the other stuff too. But even from a design perspective, at some point, it's okay to be good or great even, but if no one wants it, then what is it? So it's two sets of eyes on a project that, I think my overall design tip is be willing to move on from something. Be willing to put it on the shelf and be like, it didn't go anywhere, it happens, because you're going to have more ideas. Ideas are the easy part to some extent. That's not true. Ideas are hard too, but ideas are free, frankly.
Right.
And ideas don't cost anything, they don't really work. It's getting to the point of being able to sell it as a game that's the work. So don't be afraid to spend something that you've spent 100 hours on or 200 hours on. If it's not going anywhere, get to something else. Put it away and come back to it if you have to.
The cool thing is, that's happened to us not every time, but a lot of times, is the projects that got shelved, there was an original spark, a reason we spent so many hours on that project that didn't make it to finish line. Most of the time there's something there that when we're working this other thing, we go back and steal the spark.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And it wasn't a whole game. It turned out it was just this little thing over here in this other game.
That's the thing that happens to us all the time when we're doing, we do a lot of collaborative storytelling together. And we have a podcast that is just that.
Yeah.
And one of the things that happens all the time is we get to a character and we're like, we need to name this character. And I don't mean we need to give them like Stephen Smith name. No, we need to give them like a superhero, supervillain name. And that is like the hardest thing to do, is come up with like on the fly cool names for things like that. That haven't been taken, that aren't being used by Marvel or DC. Right.
There's so many times where we're like,
that's a great name.
If we could just use Captain America.
This guy's like a man of iron. What would we call him?
Lieutenant USA.
Right. And so we have a chunk on our secondary whiteboard that is when we're like, okay, what about this name? And we're like, oh, this is a really good name, and it's terrible for this character. Right. But it's a really good name, and we've like researched it, and that name is available. We can use that name. Nobody's else using it, but it's not for any of our characters. It goes on the whiteboard. Yeah. So we do have a whiteboard box of super sweet names that are for nothing yet. Yeah. And that is one of our like spark boxes we go to a lot. We're like, hey, is there anything in there that is a story? I've got 3 different names that kind of have some like thematic resonance between them. Those 3 names are enough of a spark to make a whole thing out of that.
Yeah. Wow. So I want to kind of blindside you guys.
Oh yeah.
And It's the way we talk about this makes it sound like it's just the best thing ever, and it is. What are some for you guys negative aspects of working with a partner?
Why don't you go first?
Yeah, I mean, jeez.
What's the downsides to this?
Yeah, no,
because
I think
it's
honestly,
not perfect, but it is.
A lot. So we're kind of a funny bunch. Like the two of us, our egos, I think, are pretty low. Like a lot of people will say, you know, I don't want to share the credit. I don't want to share creative control. I want to have absolute control. Like the two of us, we're like, eh.
Right. I do think a pitfall. I will say again, it's not like we're Jesus and Mary up here. I mean, we yell and scream and call each other names, and it happens. But I mean, at some point, to Ben's point, right? We're lucky because this isn't our full-time job, right? We have families and kids, and our lives are built around them, and this is the extra thing that we get to do for fun. So I think that probably lowers the stress a little bit because we're allowed to sort of, you know, if one of us isn't doing anything, sometimes it's like, dude, you've been supposed to look at that rule book for 2 months, and chances are he didn't look at the rule book for 2 months. So I'll just move out.
I don't look at rules.
Right, yeah. He does not look at rules anymore.
I'm out.
But I do hear a lot of people get overly worried, and this is probably something that's difficult, I would say, when you're approaching designing with a partner, is you've got to be willing to understand that sometimes 95% of the game is going to be his. And I maybe did almost nothing or very little, but at the end of the day, we're going to split the money and both names are on the box. You've got to come to terms with that. So I would say from a difficulty perspective, you got to go in knowing that that's the case. You can't be like, well, this game's like 80% mine, so I should get 80% of the money, or my name should be 80% bigger on the box.
Matt's too nice to answer the question, but I'll answer for him. He would probably answer honestly that he gets frustrated doing more of the not fun work than I do, because he just flat out does. When we did Fleet, it was a 50-50. We both wrote the rules. We both edited the rules and set them off. And like we both kind of did everything. But as we've moved on to being a little more efficient, you know, Matt is doing the first draft of the rules. He's generally, you know, one of us controls the prototype, right? Has it in a Ziploc bag and is controlling the proto off the proto. That's usually Matt. Like he's the one calling the publishers and setting up meetings, and he's a project manager by trade. He's really good at all that, and I'm really bad and not good. And he would probably answer honestly that he doesn't like doing all of the actual work.
All the not fun stuff.
Yeah, well, I'm writing in a notebook about, you know, we should do a flower game with pedals and stuff like that.
That's the same thing. He does all of the production of all the playtest files, like puts them all, and then sits there typing. And I don't have to do any of that.
The fortunate thing that we have on that, because we have that same dynamic, but the fortunate thing is that neither one of us can do the other person's job.
Yeah.
Like, I just think in game mechanics, and so Adam's like, oh, I would love it if somebody did an action like this. Like, this is how you represent that in a game mechanic.
Can you make this feel this way?
Right, and I can absolutely make that feel that way. Right. Like, that is the thing that I do. I cannot draw things. Like, that is just... No, rather.
You can.
I can, and I frequently do draw things. No one wants to see them.
I've never published something with your drawings on it.
And so, like, Adam doesn't... And, like, I could spend a lot of time, and actually Adam tells me this all the time, I could spend time and practice and get much better at drawing. Like, Adam is a big proponent of drawing is not like a magical thing that only magical people can do.
Talent's a starting point.
That's what people who draw say.
Right.
People that can't draw know that that's total bullcrap, and that it's impossible.
But I
practiced for 20 years. Guarantee.
But I feel this way. This is like this is a two-way street for us. That like Adam is like, Christopher, if you wanted to, you could really work hard and draw better. And I'm like, Adam, if you wanted to, you could put a lot of time and like be like the design person. But instead, we really like, you're talking about like splitting the credit and stuff. Oh man, we don't have to split the credit. We don't split it with anybody else. It's just us.
Yeah.
Like, we are a singular unit that doesn't split the credit.
Right. I'd say the hardest thing for me in this is the days where I don't want to talk to anybody.
Mm-hmm.
That, like,
especially when they're Fridays.
Yeah,
and it's like, no, we have to do the thing.
All right, yeah. I don't know if you can tell from this. When I was sitting here, I'm a much lower energy person than Christopher.
I don't see it.
Much lower energy. I'm pretty low key. He's pretty elevated, and sometimes that's a lot for me to handle.
Yeah.
So those are the days when I'm just like, I just don't want to get out of bed and to begin with, let alone talk with Christopher all day about this thing. But like, gotta do it.
Yeah, and it's kind of the accountability part, which is both a positive thing, but it also can be a negative thing. It's like at various points, and actually there's been parts where like you're like, dude, I need this written. I can't start these arts until you write this thing. And I'm like, I'm working on it, but like, no, do the thing. So the accountability thing is as a positive thing. It makes the dynamic work better, but it's also a negative thing in that there have been times where both of us have had to be the other person's dad.
Yeah.
And that sucks. Because we're an awesome equal partnership, and neither one of us want to be like, hey, do the thing.
Right.
Just do the thing already, okay?
Yeah.
Those are the worst times. Like, the yelling about things that we're creatively different on, those are positive experiences for us. Because something good comes out of it.
We'll have all day yelling matches. I never leave the office feeling like that we had a fight dirtiness inside. You know, like, I don't feel that way.
We never go to sleep angry.
But I always feel satisfied but exhausted after the day.
Yeah, because we're like, oh man, we got to the answer, or we realized we weren't getting to the answer, and we tabled it in a way that was useful. We're like, okay, here's what we need to do. You need to do some sketches. I need to do some writing, and we'll come back to
this out. We'll get to it.
A question.
So the initial design seems to be organic, maybe even a little chaotic in between. Yes. At some point, you have to start applying process control, right? You have to. You give each other, okay, you have to have the movement mechanics done by this date, and then the combat mechanics or whatever.
So I'm really interested in their answer, so I'm going to answer first, because I think their answer is going to be way better, because they are both game designers first and foremost. Whereas, first and foremost, we are both storytellers first and foremost, and then I am a writer, and he is an artist.
Yeah,
like,
but all of our mechanics come out of the story also.
Right, and so when it's like, oh, listen, we need somebody, the times are like, look, with the look of these costumes, because that impacts everything about how the character moves and how it acts and like all this stuff. So the looks of these costume stuff has to be done by this time. Adam, you have to do it. Or it's like the way that this character is going to, the way that the mechanic that's internal to this deck or the mechanic for the movement in this board game is going to work. Christopher, you have to do it.
But I think actually those come from other people most times. Like the deadlines that that are most urgent will be our creative director saying I need these designs to give to other artists, or I need
the story briefs.
What do you call it? The promotional materials.
Ads
and stuff like that. And say I need these for ads, or I need copy for ads, or we need playtesting files up, and that's usually external.
So Adam is speaking to the fact that we are very privileged in that the stuff that we've made that we've already made and done, that's already published, is more important than anything we're currently working on. The company survives on the fact that the stuff that we've already finished is doing very well, and the stuff that we're working on that's up and coming, if we're like, it's not going as fast as we'd like, it's going to take another 6 months, people are like, yeah, okay, that's fine. The stuff that you've already made is doing very well. So we can kind of sit back and be like, it's going to take another 4 months, and there are people that would like it to not take another 4 months, but also no one's being like, no freaking do it already.
So. Why don't you give a better answer?
Yeah, so I'm going to start, because I like what you phrased with process control. Again, engineers, I speak your language, I know what you're saying. That said, I do think our primary process control is just time. We're very rarely splitting up like, okay, hey Ben, go figure out this, acquisition mechanic while I work on some board spacing stuff. It isn't that way. Sometimes there's an idea that Ben will sketch out, or we'll have an idea about something that we've been working on, but really the process control is just the commitment to looking at the thing these amount of times for this long. Because what's going to happen is we're going to put it in front of it. In our prototypes, we're not getting the costumes and art and stuff. It looks like this table. It's white with pencil on it.
That's my prototype.
Yes, and that's where we're there until the super duper end, until I'm stealing art from Google, right? Just to show it to someone else that might want to play it. So it's less about task division in the sense, and because we both know when we're playing a game and something's not working, even like this little game we sold early this spring is about glass. Super boring thing, but totally works.
Super awesome thing.
Super awesome thing, one or the other. We spent days and days and days of lunch in one design night trying to figure out how, like you made a joke about that we're going to put a card down and take a card out of here. Well, that was like idea 19. And we couldn't figure out how to make that interesting. We knew what we wanted to do with once you got the cards, but how to get the cards, right? So an acquisition mechanic, like to your point.
What you're saying is, for us at least, most of the mechanical things that happen are when we're collaborating together. Right. One of us will generally have the initial idea and bring it to the other person, and the game works in some sense. But from then on, we don't usually leave and come back with mechanical changes because we get together once a week for 3 hours plus 40 minutes of lunch every day. Most of the actual mechanical changes are generally the two of us poring over the game together. The action items are usually, hey Matt, you're going to go update the proto, and I'm going to go not update the proto and play with my kids.
So it sounds like you two are collaborative designers who can then split your forces to take care of all the other tasks.
The administrative work.
Whereas what we are, I would say what we are is collaborative storytellers interns who then go and do our divided tasks and then come back and double check our tasks. Right. I'm like, Adam, what do you think of this writing? And Adam's like, what do you think of this drawing? And like, So
I think it's possible to approach it the way that you mentioned if you know that you've got several things you're trying to accomplish from a design perspective. I think every time that we do what we find, again, this goes back to designing collaboratively, is that what actually works and what's fun and what's interesting is going to come out during that playing process and that design process together. Because I can have a great idea that sounds awesome for how to get cards out of a pile or how to move from there to there. And I'm going to kind of try it, and it's going to make sense, but until it's integrated with the rest of that, whatever we were working on, and then having that back and forth on the play, I don't actually know. So we don't spend a lot of time trying to design tasks. To Ben's point, we're going to divide and conquer a little bit more on the other stuff that goes around, but that's something you don't really have to worry about until you've got more than one project going at a time, right? When you're first breaking in, it's really about focusing on that thing and getting it done.
Other questions? Questions are great. Yeah, like
following up on this question, actually, how do you decide when a game is done?
If there's ever done?
So perfect is the enemy of done.
Yeah.
Is a dumb thing that people say. It's very true. So like you can iterate and iterate and iterate and iterate and iterate, and you can definitely keep making minute, tiny improvements to a game forever. But ultimately, if you're just designing it to do that, great, fine, you're not making a product. If you are making a product, the game is done when it does its job. And like, whenever we start a game, whenever we start making a thing together, the point of the thing we do is, okay, what is the feeling we're trying to communicate? And there are games that over the course of playing it and designing it and making it, what we learn is the feeling that we're trying to communicate has changed. We're like, oh, we thought we were making a this game, but we're making a this plus this or this minus this kind of game. But still, the point of the game is that we're creating a feeling in the players. We're creating a feeling at the table. We're creating a sense of, it's a simulation to a degree, it's an abstraction, but that's the thing we're trying to make. And when the game does that well, with as few hiccups as possible, if any, and it is giving you making people at the table more excited about the play than frustrated by the rules or bogged down by the minutia, then it's probably 90% done. And then the 10% you have left to do is the final polish, and that takes about as long as the initial 90%, is what I found.
That's fair.
I'll also say that it's helpful to have someone else outside of your group that you're of your pairing that you're
right. And like for you guys, that's publishers.
Yeah.
You're making your game, and then you're taking it to publishers, and they're like, yeah, but we want it a little bit more of this, or we'd also like it if all of the boats also had the fancy little hats or whatever.
Because for us, that was Paul that we made this game, and we probably would have worked on this game
infinitely. When we started the company, the two of us made this game for us, and that was it. There was no intention for this to be a product.
It probably would have went forever if Paul didn't say you have to have it done by this time, and we have to send it to a printer and have it made into a product.
Because he's like, if we're going to do this thing, we're making a company. Because he's like, oh, this thing's really good. We should make it into. You should sell it to somebody. I was like, no, I will never sell it to somebody. It is mine. He's like, well, you could make it. You could make a company, and we can do this. And so we did that. And he's like, well, if we're going to do that, if we're incorporating here, we need to have a product by Gen Con 2011. And so in order to have a product by Gen Con 2011, we had to have all the art to the printer.
By this day, we have to have the game finished by this day with our finished by this, and that was external. We would have gone forever.
Right. So you can do that internally. You can do that internally. I've done that with the RPG, where I have internal dates where I'm like, okay, I need to have it done here so that I can stop working on this by this date and start working on it.
I think that you only have the self-awareness to do that because
I've seen it work
at this point.
I think that's an important point.
Yeah.
To answer your question, maybe from a perspective, when you're not meeting deadlines because of a company, as a designer, you can technically work on the same game forever, and no one's going to tell us to stop it ourselves. So I do think, I know this is kind of an ambiguous answer, but it's a bit of a feel thing, and some of that's going to come out from getting the opportunities to play in an unpub setting or in a con setting with other designers, and when the feedback starts to, I would say, normalize, you're seeing the same things over and over again, and then you have to decide, okay, do we think that feedback is acceptable in the sense of it's part of the game, or is it something that we want to keep changing? So after the first one, that one took us a lot longer probably than anything prior to Sleepy Hollow, and because we just didn't know when to stop the first time we designed a game. And we kept going and going, and we played that game thousands of times with the extra zeros. I mean, it was insane. And now we've gotten more efficient, we've gotten better at knowing and having that feel for when something is ready to be shown to the public, whether that be a publisher, whether that be playtesters at a con, whether that be even my parents, and that's something you kind of learn over time, frankly. It doesn't come naturally at first, but you get there.
I think at some point you realize that the changes you're making are more for preference versus actually making the game better, quote unquote.
Right.
You know, like we'll think a game is done and we'll send it to a publisher and they'll say, that was wonderful, but for us, there's not enough player interaction. And for us, that would be like a preference comment. Is the game better or worse if we add some take that or whatever to the game? I wouldn't consider that like the design was done. It just wasn't for their appetite for what they're looking for. So if we change, if we would have spent an extra 6 months to add player interaction or remove it, we're kind of playing with preference at this point. Right. Is the game really that much different or better? Or are we just kind of tweaking the preference sliders? Versus you get into the end state where someone can't make a play. Like for us, it's done when it's not mechanically broken anymore. All the edge cases are done. There's no time in the game where someone can't make a play or they fall into this downward no fun spiral of I have nothing fun left to do or something or some runaway strategy. Right. Once we got to that point and the playtester feedback and it's been fun and we're just tweaking preferences. Right. And that's a feel thing.
It is.
The more you do it, the more you'll get the feel for that.
And part of it all the time with Sentinels, also especially because each deck is supposed to feel different. That the playtesters will come back and say like, I don't like this.
I love that I don't like this.
I don't like this.
I've got a thing that I just finished doing that a bunch of playtesters are like, I don't like it when the villain does this. It feels jarring. I'm like, excellent, good, thank you. I'm very happy with that feedback. I want it to feel jarring. So, and they're like, we don't like it. It's like, yes, I like it. Right, thank you. Good.
I want you to like it.
We don't, right. It's a villain. He's supposed to be a jerk. Yeah, right. Yeah, I want you to feel bad at the table. That's what. When I'm writing heroes, I want you to feel good. When I'm writing environments, I want you to feel present. And when I'm writing villains, I want you to have moments where you're like, no.
I think that's good design device in general. Device in general is it's really easy to go both ways with feedback. Overdo it and just like, oh my gosh, change everything that they said, or be like, that person was stupid. I'm not listening to them, right? And somewhere in the middle is the right answer, like always. Like everything else in life, it's not here or here, it's somewhere here. And it's something else that you get better. And also, frankly, to keep harping the point of this panel, it's easier with two sets of eyes because, I mean, for Ben and I, Ben's going to ignore, and I'm going to maybe overreact more often, and we're probably end up in the middle somewhere. I would say compared to some designers, we probably both kind of ignore.
I value feedback.
Yeah. He does. He values feedback that he agrees with. No, I'm sure. No, but seriously though, it's a good thing to have that.
It's tough when someone, plays the game and loses by 50 and tells you everything wrong. You're
like,
I'll play better. That's our...
That's the thing that I will lots of times will be like, Adam, I want to talk to you about a thing that is entirely mechanical. He's like, oh, okay, fine. And I'll be like, the playtesters don't like this, but you and I both played it, and we like the way it works. But a bunch of playtesters don't like the way it works. And Adam's like, but I really like the way it works. I'm like, I also like the way it works. I'm like, are we convinced that they're wrong? Let's play it one more time. Yes. Yeah. And like sometimes we're like, no, I see. Okay, all right, cool. But like,
well, something that you said to me a bunch of times also about playtesting in general is that someone will say, oh, this card doesn't work, and here's why. And here's this long description of why I think this card doesn't work. And what they're actually saying is, this doesn't feel right.
Yeah, I don't like the way this feels.
And like recognizing what that feeling, what feeling they're getting, and what feeling you want them to get is.
Yeah. One of the other things, like, especially when someone's like, "Oh, I don't like the way this works. It should work like this instead." That part there is almost always useless.
Yep.
I don't like it.
I agree with.
Yeah, I don't like the way this feels. I want to listen to that.
Right.
This felt bad, and here's the problems with it. Okay, good. I want to listen to that. Here's what you should do instead.
That sounds jerky, but it's important.
I'm sorry, I'm not here to make friends. I'm here to
No. Listen, I don't want to come off arrogant or drink, but that's super important. If someone's telling you how that should be done differently, they're just designing your game for you.
Right.
And they want it to be their game. Right? They want to do the thing how they want it to be done. That feedback isn't valuable.
I want to know the problems they're having.
Right.
I want to know.
Yeah, you want to know why they got there, but not how they want to do it instead.
Yeah.
Or even a step above that is when you're able to be present, watching the body language and the emotions, and you can tell if someone's having fun or disengaged with the game. So then acting on that versus them saying, this little mechanism here should be this other mechanism. It's really, they were disengaged with this portion of the game, so we need to work on the fact that the players are disengaged with this portion. Yeah. And generally the designer, you're going to come up with the solution versus like Matt said or Christopher, them just making the game for you because
we're not designing by committee here.
Yeah, exactly.
Designing by duo is very different than designing by committee.
Yep. And again, the point of feedback, again, I know we're kind of a little bit off tangent here, but the point of feedback really, again, is to normalize a consistent feeling more than it is. Not again, our stuff's going to work before anyone else plays it because we've had the opportunity to find all those edge cases. So that we're not often looking for something that, oh my gosh, you broke our game for us. Not going to happen. We're looking for, oh, like Ben said, that looks boring. We thought that was cool, but when people do it, it doesn't look very fun, and they're not having fun. So we were wrong, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Let's try something else.
Yeah. Not having fun is a big important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
More questions?
Any more hands?
Sure.
Yeah.
I think you were talking about your prototypes are often just white cards.
100%. Yep.
That's about as far as you get. Do you ever use any virtual tabletops or Vassal or anything like that?
We have. We've used what? Tabletopia to do some solo stuff with one of our games. Not as much, only because again, that's probably a good tool. We have the ability to play our white paper together, so it's not as necessary for just. And neither of us are on there programming. That's just a lack of a skill set in our particular design duo. Graphic design and programming and things like that just aren't our strong points. But I think I know lots of folks that do. I see value there. I think for us, the game that we did it with, someone volunteered to do it for us, and it was fantastic because we hone a solo mode in by just running 5-minute solo games of a card game on there, and it really
we saw a lot of value in it, but we don't have the skill set to efficiently set it up.
Right.
Yeah. So the one time someone did it for us, we loved it.
That's the same situation for us. Like I've not done any like digital play testing or anything like that. Now one of the play testers on my playtesting forum was like, "Hey, can I put all of these into Tabletop Simulator so I can run that with the other people on the forum?" I'm like, go for it. I'm never going to look at it. Not because I disagree or dislike it, but I don't want to have to learn a new system. I'm right now in the process of writing a system, and if I'm writing a system, learning a system at the same time is going to degrade that. That's the important thing I'm doing.
Yep.
So, yeah. But yeah, I think if people know it or like it or want to use it, that's great. I want to do the vast majority of my playing of the game in person so that I can see the physical reactions at the table. Somebody tells me, "Oh, I really enjoyed this game. I had a great time." But the entire time they're sitting there, like looking at their cards, and then they're just saying that to me at the end. I'm like, "All right, you've given me two very different pieces of information here, and one of them I trust."
Yeah.
I think we are about at time.
Are we an hour panel?
I think so.
We had 2 hours if we wanted it.
Oh, really? Two?
We don't need to go 2 hours, but I think it's
up to you guys. We'll keep going as long as we ask some questions. Yeah. No more questions. I see. They've spoken. This is the
feedback.
This is the feedback. Oh yeah.
So, as a playtester, I appreciate all the digital stuff because it lets me do it more often.
Sure.
Because I can't find people around me who are interested in playing the same game that many times. But on the internet, there's more.
That's totally fair. And we, Ben and I, a long time ago, again, reason number 902, Designer with the Partners, because our group got tired of playing Fleet. When they played it 700 times. And we had two buddies who played it at lunch with us, and we would play 3 games of full Fleet in 45 minutes. Because we knew what we were trying we were iterating one thing at a time and playing entire games around that one iteration. And at some point they're like, okay guys, we just play Dominion instead. And you've got to be able to you're going to burn your group out doing that. So I do agree in that aspect. And I also think that's important why if you are designing a game by yourself or you are working on whatever your project is, even if you're not going to maybe work with a partner, find a like individual that's maybe doing the same thing and then you do the trade, right? So we're going to play mine, now we're going to play yours. And you can at least get that same sort of interaction with two people that are accomplishing the same goal, even if you're not working with put both names in the box. So I would do that as well.
A thing that you brought up there that I think is very true, and is also very true about our process, is this playing the game a million times, and you two aren't tired of it because when you're playing it, you're not just playing it for the fun of playing it. You're looking for something specific. It's the thing that we haven't talked about is how to find a design partner other than be friends with somebody for 25 years.
Right.
The reason that we work well together, and it sounds like to me the reason that you guys work well together, besides complementary ways to think about games and likes and blah blah blah, is also being obsessed with the thing you're making in the same level. Like Adam and I both have different days of positive and negative and whatever, but we are always so incredibly thrilled and obsessed with the stuff we're working on and super into doing that. And
that's always been the case. Whether it was we're making a comic book or we're making a game or we're making those things.
We're both working toward But we're working towards the goal.
Right.
That we're like, okay, we have the same endpoint in mind, and we are willing to sacrifice our fun time because the thing that we're doing here is fun. The iteration, the infinite iteration, and the infinite work, and the stuff that is like, you guys are just like doing this over and over again. Why? So because we got to make it right, and we are the people that can do that. That is I think the greatest strength of us working as a duo, and it sounds like it's a similar thing to you. You can make the thing go. You're going to brute force it until you know it's right.
We're very passionate about the same types of games.
Yeah.
You know, even when we're playing with our game group, we generally like the same types of games. We're passionate. So then, by proxy, we want to make the same types of games. And it, like you said, one of us might get bored if, you know, I love deck builders and he hated deck builders, and I'm just dragging him through this deck builder process. That's not going to work if he's not passionate about it for, you know, frankly, the 2 to 3 years it takes to go from, even longer, from idea to shelf.
Yeah.
We both have to be super stoked about the project the whole time, or it's just not going to finish.
I'm really glad you said 2 to 3 years, because I've had people be like, oh, I have an idea for a game. I want to take it to Kickstarter later this fall.
Right.
I'm like,
whoa.
How about you work on it for 3.5 years and then go to Kickstarter? Yeah. All right.
So, I was just going to say, some friends of ours that are new and collaborative designers, they asked us another question, and you don't have to answer this. They asked us, how do you split the money? And we said, well, since there's so much of it, you know, that's a valid question. Because this duo, I won't name them, but the one felt like the initial idea was his idea, and the other person was coming along for the ride. So they arranged some like 70-30 split on this game. And I was like, that is a terrible idea. Because
you're making sure that the 30% person is never as invested and never as proud.
Right.
Like,
and now we're comparing who did more or who had more of the idea.
One getting $7, one that's getting $3.
Exactly. What's the difference? I mean,
when you're sharing dozens of dollars after years of work,
now you're like jealous of the other person, or like have some sort. I actually did 40% of the work. Whatever. I mean, so for us.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. Everything we do is 50-50 because we're a team. Like you said, you guys are one. We operate the same way.
Right.
We are Ben and Matt. We make games together. Yeah. I don't care if he does 99% of the work. My name's going on the box. I'm getting half.
Exactly. I think
$20.
Oh, it's true.
So we just put all of our money in one big money bin. Yeah. Swim together.
Yeah.
So the truth of it is not dissimilar from that.
Right.
Because we are a company and we are a game company and we have a bunch of people and those things. We don't. Adam and I make no percentages on any Sentinels things ever at all. We are both salaried employees of Greater Than Games, and we both are self-incentivized to work our butts off to make the things work.
So all of our money goes to the company that we both own, but it doesn't come to our pockets.
Yeah, I do know a lot of game designers that like also own their company, but then they get like a percentage royalty for the sales, and we do not, and we never will, and we do not want to. When I'm doing like writing RPGs, like if I'm working with somebody who's a writer, RPG writing is really weird and different than game design stuff, in that you're not paid for mechanism as much as you're paid for number of words. It's very strange. It's very strange to me because I feel like number of words, I can just
I can be more verbose.
Mechanisms, that's hard.
Always give you more words.
Right, I can Dickens it if you want me to.
Right.
But and so like I know people that are like, oh well, so I own the company, but I also get my like 7 cents a word or whatever. And like for us, absolutely not. Adam doesn't get paid per art. I don't get paid per word. We don't get royalties of sales. Like all the money goes to the company, and then we make our salary.
We would both probably make a lot more if we got paid per word.
Absolutely, we would, and the company would be in way worse shape.
Yes,
and in the same way that like the game is the point of what we're doing, the company is also a big focus for us, and we want to make sure that like we are supporting the company, and then we trust the company to support us.
Yeah. I think a lot of that comes down to the same sort of a generic tenet, I guess, is being equally yoked. And I don't mean, again, splitting everything equally necessarily, but pick somebody to work with that you're on the same page with.
Yeah.
That can mean a lot of ways. It can be lifestyle, like if the person you're designing with doesn't work and they're texting you at 2:30 in the afternoon, you're in a meeting, well, you can't really have a good conversation then, can you? Because you're both, and you're working all day and you got 5 kids at home. And it's important, I think, to pick someone that has the same, it doesn't have to be the same person. It doesn't have to be somebody that's exactly like you, but someone that has the same ideas of what you want to accomplish and how you want to get there. So be, as equally yoked as possible in how you approach those things. Pick somebody that you've got that ability to kind of.
So it's a long-term relationship.
I was just saying, I really like that we've used equally yoked and also never go to bed angry.
Yeah. This is whole marriage.
So these are
yeah. There's 3 kinds of love. Or 5 kinds of love. What's the other?
Yeah,
it's really.
Agape love.
What's your gaming love language? Dry Soulless Hero.
Yes, Dry Soulless Hero.
joke about it, but I see him more than I see my wife. But that's true. I spend more time.
That is not true. We spend the same time in the same room more.
Yeah,
but we don't look at each other.
No, we don't. No, but like, I go here all day. I go to my office all day. And that's true of most people. They see their coworkers more than they see their spouse.
Right. It is true. We're going to go to Gen Con for 4 days, and then at like 11:30 on Monday, we're going to go to Taco Bell with him, who I just spent 4 days with. I don't have to go to Taco Bell with him. I can sit at my desk and eat. But it's just, you're doing it because it's part of the process and what you're trying to accomplish, frankly. And it's always fun. Yeah, and it doesn't. If it stops being fun, we just won't do it anymore. When it disappears because it's just not fun anymore.
Yeah.
Anybody else? You guys? You two raised your hands. You two in the back. What are you guys working on? No, you right. Don't look behind you. I'm talking to you.
The one that said your game.
You guys raised your hands for the game design parts. What are you guys working on?
Nothing in particular. Just higher level of what just goes into the entire game design process.
Oh, cool. Okay.
How to even just get started when you have an idea and sort of where you go from there.
Are you guys design partners or?
No, just
friends. Okay. All right, we'll consider it. As we've talked here, maybe
Is there anybody in this room that does work with a design partner? Their name is Nicole.
Yeah.
No. Okay. Cool. I was curious.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Does anybody else have anything at all? Design related, company related, hair tips, whatever you guys. Oh, we got one in the back.
Very similar tips.
You guys also work with Paul. Is he part of your collaborative thing? Or he just
no. So Paul. There's an interesting situation that happens in the office, which Adam and I collaborate on making games together, and then Paul and I collaborate on doing business stuff together. And these are these two very different relationships that I have. And Adam and my relationship, we've joked about it, but it is a lot more like a marriage in that we have this baby that we're taking care of. It's less of a marriage and more of a we have a child together.
Right.
And whereas Paul and I, we have a spreadsheet together.
and then Paul and Adam are mortal enemies.
Yeah. Paul and Adam actually get to be better friends because they don't have a spreadsheet or a baby.
It's true. Yeah, there's not that aspect.
They don't have to worry about they don't have to leave it at home.
They leave both kids with Christopher.
Yeah, Paul and I talk about our actual families
and
just things that we like. And
that's
pretty much
So there is a third person in the triumvirate of Greater Than Games, and Paul and I have that other collaborative relationship, but I would not call it a creative collaborative relationship.
What will happen though is we'll get really excited about something, we'll figure something out, we'll finish creating it, and we'll both march into Paul's office and go, hey, we thought of this, and this, and this, this, and here's the story, and that's how it ends. And he'll go, cool.
That's not good fun. He's like, it sounds like you guys are really excited about this.
Yeah. We're like, we sure are.
Yeah.
We just want to tell you. Goodbye. Yeah. So, anything else? Yes.
How do you deal with the last minute curveball that gets thrown at you?
Oh, those are great. And honestly, they're very rare because so much of the job is this early on iteration. The last minute curveballs are nah, whatever. The sorts of those that exist, which I think is probably pretty similar for you guys as for us, is we've designed the game around the idea that we're going to be able to print it in a way that works and a way that we'll get the components we need, and then now we're actually getting our quote from the printer, and the printer says, you can't do this at all. I'm no, we have to. That was part of it. It has to be that. It's no, it can't be that.
So it's figuring out how to do that. And the first edition of Sentinels is a great example of this, that we wanted to have the oversized villain cards. We wanted to have 4x6 villain cards that had all the data on there. And it was a big thing. It was the center of the table, and you flipped it. It was this great thematic thing. How much bigger
those were $1 a piece to print. It was high no.
It's way too much money, and we can't sell the game for that.
Right.
So
we had to change them to two smaller villain cards. Small cards. And it's inferior, and we've been sad about it since 2011. But we're just going to fix it in new editions.
A lot of times we'll get since we're the designer, sold to a publisher. A lot of times they'll go to Kickstarter, or even the non-Kickstarters, frankly, want promo material. Mm-hmm. On our side, the last-minute curveball is, I need more content.
Listen,
I've been working on this thing for 4 years, and it's this big, and now you need more content in 3 weeks.
We played 5,000 games of Fleet, now you want a card by tomorrow? That's how you get salmon. If you've ever played Fleet, which maybe you haven't, it's all right. But that's the worst. That is the worst curveball for designers, I think, in a Kickstarter setting.
That's
having to listen. It's great, right? Because you're killing stretch goals and you're going great, and that's all fun. It's fun until you're like, well, again, it's part of our
If I had another idea, it'd be in the game.
Right.
Yes, that was the Oblivion Kickstarter.
We did a Kickstarter for the final expansion for Sentinels of the Multiverse in 2016. And
is that out yet, Chris? Is that delivered? I can't remember. Awesome. Good job.
Fight you. I'll get there.
With a shovel.
Yeah, no, I like it. I like it with a shovel. No, but so it raised $1.5 million, and it
And we had stretch goals for up through like 300,000.
We were like,
okay, we'll never hit
these. $300,000.
Yeah, we'll never hit this. It's okay. We'll
hit that,
and we got through all of our stretch goals like the first day.
Yeah. At the end of 24 hours, we were at $500,000.
Yes.
And we're like,
that is insane.
Right.
We're like, we need more stretch
the
goals.
first update that I wrote for the Kickstarter, I was writing the update. I'm like, wow, you guys, this is amazing because we hit our funding goal of $40,000 in 7 minutes. So I'm writing this update that I'm writing like 10 minutes after the Kickstarter's launched. Then I'm like, okay, and in this update, I'm going to tell you about the stretch goals that we've already shown the chart for, and I'm going to show you. And so I'm writing this thing, and I look at the Kickstarter. I've got 2 monitors. I look at the Kickstarter, and I'm like, oh. Well, then let me write about the ones the stretch goals we've unlocked. And as I'm writing, we're unlocking stretch goals faster than I can write about them. I'm like, write this update. No. And so this update doesn't get posted until 8 p.m. And it's like, here's all the stretch goals you guys finished unlocking at 5 p.m. I'll do another update tomorrow morning with whatever you're on then. And
then the keyboard has melted at this point.
Right.
And I'm just like, I can't. I've been writing for 4 hours straight. While you like, and
so we actually had to come up with more stretch goals.
Yep. And we wrote stuff that was really good. And we were really happy with when we were doing it. Super fast, and as a result, the Kickstarter was delivered like 2 years late, a year and a half. But still, it was delivered very late, and I hate that. We've delivered the 3 Kickstarters leading up to that. We delivered early,
right?
But yeah.
Can I say a secret as a designer? Every game is late. Every single game out there. The only difference is he had to make a guess when you did it in 2016. Yes. He had to guess when it was going to come out because we've had games from publishers that weren't Kickstarter. These are European publishers, American publishers, and the games are late. Just no one knows they're late because no one ever promised anything. Right. So I will say, as a Kickstarter backer, even I truly wish I could tell everybody in the world, just hang out. It'll come when it comes, and it's all good.
I wish we could put we'll deliver it when it's done.
Right.
But people
doesn't work. I got it.
When I get on Kickstarter, if I back something on Kickstarter, it's a gamble to begin with. But I'm like this. I'm going to put this money out here. And I'm just going to set it here and walk away from it.
Yeah.
And maybe someday I'll get a cool package.
Yeah.
And I won't expect it.
It's a nice surprise.
Yeah, it's a present.
It's a great surprise.
And like
that past me bought myself.
I was going to say thank you, past me.
Every so often, I'll message a Kickstarter like, oh, I think you guys delivered, and I think I backed you. And they're like, didn't you read every single update with all the information?
Nope.
I'm like,
never.
No, I didn't.
Not one.
I read 0 updates on every Kickstarter I've ever done, so I'm that guy.
Yeah,
I don't write updates. And I write updates.
For the ones.
Yeah.
Check
any non-Kickstarter? No.
Oh yeah.
Anybody else have anything before we go?
Awesome. Thank you guys
all
so much for being here.